Greetings, my dear viewer. This is a channel about marital infidelity and about the consequences if one spouse starts to cheat on the other. If you, as well as I do, support true family values and condemn cheating, then subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Let's get started. Marrying someone who has already made up their mind about everything gives you the freedom to make every other choice for yourself. While I was deployed, my wife decided to open our marriage without my input, so I built a life without her. Now, she wishes she hadn't. At 38 years old, I've spent most of my adult life serving in the Marines. My wife, Riley, is 40, and we've been married for 8 years, though we've known each other for 10. Given my career, I spend half the year away, sometimes more. It's never been easy, but it's the life we both agreed upon when we exchanged vows. Then, out of nowhere, she blindsided me. It was just another video call, one of our usual date nights. Good food, a glass of wine, casual conversation. Then she hit me with it. "We need to talk. I want to open our marriage." I almost choked on my drink. I actually laughed, thinking she was joking, or maybe I had misheard her. She wasn't joking. Her expression was unreadable, her tone unwavering. I leaned toward my screen, searching her face for any sign of humor. There was none, just cold certainty. Trying to break the tension, I forced a chuckle. "All right, what's the punchline?" She sighed, visibly irritated. "Can you be serious for a second?" I set my glass down and exhaled. "Okay, say what you need to say." She took a deep breath, as if she'd been holding this in for a long time. "I've thought about this for a while, and I believe it's the best thing for us. I love you, but this marriage feels like I'm still single. Going half a year without intimacy is too much. I don't even remember what it feels like to be intimate when I want to be intimate. I'm tired of feeling frustrated." She kept talking, her emotions intensifying. I sat silently, waiting for her to get to the part where she'd take it all back or offer some kind of compromise. That moment never came. By the time she was finished, she looked exhausted, as though she had carried this burden alone for too long. I was stunned. I had no idea this was coming. "I get that this is hard," I told her, keeping my voice steady. "I appreciate how much you've sacrificed, but my job requires me to be away. That's not going to change." She wasn't interested in logic. She waved off my words and insisted we settle it right there. She talked about how lonely she was, how miserable it felt to celebrate birthdays and anniversaries alone, how she had to take care of herself when she was sick. By the end, she was crying. I understood her pain. I just didn't know what she expected me to do about it. This was the life we had chosen. Now, she admitted she hadn't anticipated how isolating it would be. This wasn't the first time she had struggled with our reality. Early in our marriage, friends and family suggested we have a child to keep her company. But she didn't want to raise a baby alone, and I agreed. It would only make things harder. So, we had decided against it, unless I transitioned to a desk job, which never happened. I asked her, point blank, "Are you saying you want a divorce?" She shook her head. "No, I love you. I want to spend my life with you. But I'm almost 40. Menopause is coming. I don't want to waste the years I have left waiting for you to come home." She wasn't asking for my opinion. She was making an announcement. This was happening, whether I agreed or not. I stared at her. "So what exactly are you asking for?" She met my gaze without hesitation. "I want to see other men. I have needs, and I refuse to keep ignoring them. This is happening." Any man in my position would feel the ground shift beneath him. I took a deep breath. "So you want to sleep with other men while still being married to me?" She nodded. I questioned her logic. "And how is this going to fix your loneliness? Are these men going to be there when you're sick? Celebrate your birthdays? What's the plan here?" She hesitated. "I don't know if it's just going to be intimacy or if I'm going to date them as well. But you're my husband. They just fill the void when you're not home. When you're home, there's just us." I asked how long she intended for this arrangement to last. She had no answer. When I asked if she had already been unfaithful, she snapped, "No. If I wanted to cheat, I wouldn't be having this conversation. I'd just do it behind your back. This is about honesty." Her logic was twisted. Some might sympathize, but I wasn't one of them. "Do I have any say in this?" I asked. She was firm. "I've made my decision. If I don't do this, I'll lose my mind." My head throbbed. "I need time to process this." She nodded. "Okay." And then she ended the call. Ironically, I had just been home a few weeks prior. When we spoke again, I asked, "Why didn't you bring this up while I was there?" She admitted, "Because when you're here, I don't feel like I need anyone else." I wanted to believe she was just acting out of loneliness, but I knew better. I asked if she had really thought about the consequences. Her response was immediate. Yes. So I pushed further. "What are the rules? Can I see other women? What happens with our finances? How long does this last?" She brushed off my concerns. "I haven't thought that far ahead. I just know I need someone when you're not here. But when you're home, it's just us. If you want to sleep around while you're away, that's your choice. But when you're back, you won't need anyone else. I'll be here." I nodded. "I hear you. But this isn't what I wanted. I married you for monogamy. Still, if this is what you're choosing, I won't stop you. Just understand, I won't sit by without responding." She smirked. "And what exactly are you going to do?" Calmly, I laid it out. "First, you'll manage your own finances. I'm cutting off my contributions to our joint account. Second, I won't be calling or texting you while you're with other men. And third, I may see other women, and you won't get a say in it." She laughed, as if she had won. "I knew you'd come around. This is going to be fun. And I know you won't go too far. You can't resist me." Then, she started undressing. I stopped her. "No, my conditions start now. Enjoy yourself." And I ended the call. That was that. I pushed aside any lingering thoughts of her and concentrated solely on my plan. Every so often, she attempted to reach out, but I ignored every message. Her social media painted a carefully curated picture, photos from nights out and lavish vacations, with no trace of another man in sight. But the truth was obvious. A hot tub shot adorned with rose petals, dim candlelight, and 2 wine glasses in the frame. There was no need for further explanation. Then, out of nowhere, her sister messaged me, concerned. She and their mother were growing increasingly uneasy about Riley's behavior and wanted to know if I had any insight. I didn't sugarcoat it. I laid out the truth. Riley had unilaterally decided our marriage was now open, despite my complete lack of consent, simply because she felt restless. As expected, she lost her mind when she found out I had spoken to them. My phone was bombarded with messages, but did I care? Not in the slightest. My vacation was fast approaching, and I had already made arrangements. My brother had secured me a new apartment, and after confiding in him, my parents now knew everything as well. I had even taken the next step, hiring a lawyer to start the legal process. Upon my return, I would meet with him and move forward. There was no rush. I wanted to execute my plan with patience and precision. Everything was falling into place exactly as I had envisioned. Perhaps I'd provide updates during my vacation, or maybe I'd wait until I got back. Either way, for those still following along, I appreciate it. Riley choosing to redefine our marriage while I was deployed had been the ultimate warning sign. Odds were, she had already acted on it, and we all know how one-sided open marriages end. We had committed to this life together, yet she had decided that the sacrifices we both made no longer applied to her. That wasn't my burden to carry. I had made it clear from the beginning, I wasn't okay with it. This was her disaster to deal with, not mine. To those who understand, I appreciate the support. Update 1. Before getting into the details, I need to address something that's been bothering me. There's a common narrative that portrays women married to deployed men as tragic figures drowning in loneliness. The idea that they suffer through unbearable isolation, forced into a difficult life, is constantly pushed. And while there's some truth to that, let's be honest, no one forced them into these marriages. They knew exactly what they were signing up for. Riley wasn't exactly struggling. She lived in a spacious four-bedroom duplex, complete with a pool and a patio. Her lifestyle was far beyond what her teacher's salary alone could afford. Designer bags, a luxury watch worth more than a month's paycheck. It was all there. Funny how no one talks about those perks. Meanwhile, for us on deployment, it wasn't easy either. Constant travel, stationed in cities teeming with temptations. And yet, some of us remained faithful. The worst part? That loyalty was rarely appreciated. Now, onto my vacation. I never stepped foot in that house again. My brother had secured my new place, and for the first few days, he and his wife welcomed me into their home. I took my niece and nephew on a weekend camping trip. Another weekend was spent in my hometown, reconnecting with my parents, childhood friends, and neighbors. Every moment was documented and posted online, specifically for her to see. Most of my break was filled with family and old friends, but I also indulged in the upscale social scene, attending exclusive gatherings with senior officials. Riley had always loved those parties, so naturally I made sure to share photos. Some included women. When people asked about her, I was honest. The truth spread like wildfire, and soon everyone in our circle knew. Some men saw her as an easy target, and that was the cost of her reputation. At first, she acted indifferent, still clinging to the delusion that things would return to normal. Her initial messages were casual, asking where I was staying and why I hadn't come home. Then came the faux patience. I'll give you space. I'll wait for you. But the moment she realized I was thriving without her, she unraveled. Why did you abandon me? Didn't we agree to go back to monogamy when you returned? She demanded. After months of silence, I finally responded. I never agreed to anything. You made your choices, and now I'm making mine. Her response was weak. Okay, I'll wait for you to come back when you're done. As if she still had any control over the situation. By then, my focus was on rebuilding my life. I joined a badminton club, played doubles for hours, then swam. I finally enrolled in an upskilling course I had been meaning to take for years. While she had been busy chasing her version of freedom, I had been constructing a future for myself. Checking off goals had never felt so fulfilling. I hit the gym consistently, expanded my social circle, and rekindled old friendships. Revenge wasn't the goal. I had no interest in playing petty games. I simply wanted to rediscover the person I had been before my marriage became a farce. I had never felt more at peace. 4 months in, she reached out again, this time requesting a sit-down to establish rules for our open marriage. I shut that down without hesitation. Do whatever you want. I'm not playing along, I told her. When she finally realized I was moving forward without her, panic set in. An email arrived. Let's go back to monogamy. I'm done with this. As if relationships functioned like light switches. My reply was short, that's it. And I moved on. Then, she appeared at my new apartment, unannounced. She stood at the door, visibly uneasy, asking why I hadn't come home. Because I have no interest in being with someone who disrespected our marriage, I stated bluntly. I thought we could work this out, she pleaded. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. Tears welled in her eyes as she admitted that our social circle had ostracized her. Invitations had stopped coming. Even the wives of my colleagues, her old friends, had cut her off. Actions have consequences, I told her. She suggested couples counseling. I laughed. What do you even want? She finally asked. You'll find out soon enough, I said. Desperation took over. You met someone, didn't you? You love her, don't you? Are you sleeping with her? I laughed even harder. Keep guessing. She begged for an answer. I ended it with 2 words. Get out. She left in tears, accusing me of betraying her trust. Meanwhile, I kept in close contact with my lawyer. The papers were almost finalized, but I planned to have them served while I was deployed, ensuring she couldn't retaliate in person. The moment my ship left shore, she received the documents. In a frenzy, she called, screaming that I had betrayed her, that I had broken her. She contacted my lawyer, swearing to fight the divorce. She even reached out to my parents, hoping for sympathy. But they already knew the truth and shut her down. Then her mother called, claiming Riley's mental health had deteriorated from the backlash. Her entire social circle had turned on her. "Is there any chance of reconciliation?" she asked. "None," I said. "I refuse to stay married to someone who spent a year entertaining strangers." Her mother admitted Riley was resisting the divorce. "That'll only make things worse for her," I warned, "because I'm moving on and she won't like what she sees. Now, my inbox is flooded with desperate messages and voicemails. I haven't blocked her yet, but I will soon. She made her bed. Now she gets to lie in it. For now, I want to see her suffer." Update 2. Taking another short break. The divorce proceedings continue. Riley is fighting tooth and nail, but she's out of options and out of money. The lavish lifestyle she envisioned never materialized the way she had hoped. The men she surrounded herself with were fleeting distractions, not lasting partners. In court, she finally crumbled, admitting that opening our marriage had been a catastrophic mistake. She pleaded to undo it all, desperate to erase the past. But once I cut off her financial support, she burned through her savings trying to sustain the life she had grown addicted to. Within a year, it all vanished. Her teacher's salary barely covers the basics, let alone the designer clothes she once took for granted. Luxury is a one-way street. Once you've had a taste, there's no turning back. She assumed that when she opened our marriage and I withdrew my funding, it would be temporary, that she could survive on her savings until I inevitably stepped back in. Her plan was simple: act devoted while I was home, then indulge freely once I was gone. She miscalculated. Instead of a brief inconvenience, this is now her permanent reality. At every hearing, she begs for another shot. She wants to wipe the slate clean, as if a simple reset would make everything right again. Saying, "Let's start over," is easy for her. But I can't erase the betrayal, the humiliation, the months of agony she forced me to endure. When she first broke the news, I was left to process it alone, trapped on a ship in the middle of the ocean. She had timed it perfectly, waiting until I set sail, ensuring she had half a year of unchecked freedom before I could confront her. How could I ever forget the torment of those months? The ocean offers no escape, no distractions, just endless waves and the crushing weight of heartbreak. There were moments I thought of surrendering to the sea, letting it take me under. I can't even begin to describe the depth of that suffering. But now, the ordeal is almost over. Just one last hearing, and it will finally be done. The assets are settled, though not fairly. Still, I refuse to fight over material things. The house? I won't keep it. I refuse to live in a place polluted by her betrayal. She won't get it either. She can't afford her share. And that suits me just fine. I have no desire to cling to the past. My new life is everything she threw away. I've built something better, surrounded myself with people who matter, carved out a routine that brings me stability, and reclaimed my independence. There's no resentment left, only relief that I never let her choices dictate my future. I'm not actively looking for someone new, but I'm open to whatever comes my way. Riley is blocked from my social media, but she still finds ways to spy, creating fake accounts to keep tabs on me. I see it, but I let her watch. I want her to see exactly what she lost. Her once vibrant Instagram, filled with extravagant vacations, designer outfits, and VIP parties, is now nothing but cryptic, sorrowful quotes. That's the cost of destroying a stable, loving marriage. Thank you for reading. You're putting in the work, staying loyal despite the distance, while the world tries to paint Riley as some tragic, abandoned wife. But no, she wasn't a victim. She took vows she chose to break. She put herself first, without a thought for what it would cost. That being said, you're in a great position now. Keep moving forward. Keep growing. Wishing you the best. What would you have done? My friend, and this is the end of the story. If you liked this story, then put your royal like and subscribe to the channel. May the force be with you. Greetings, my dear viewer. This is a channel about marital infidelity and about the consequences if one spouse starts to cheat on the other. If you, as well as I do, support true family values and condemn cheating, then subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Let's get started. Sometimes it's impossible to tell whether fortune is smiling upon you or plotting against you. On a Saturday morning, I backed out of my driveway, en route to Home Depot for some supplies to fix the bathroom tub. I had barely gone a few dozen feet when my car felt off. A quick glance confirmed it. A flat tire. Just my luck. With no choice but to deal with it, I pulled back in and walked home to grab my hydraulic jack. Stepping inside, I found Eleanor in the middle of a phone conversation. "It won't be an issue," she assured whoever was on the other end. As I set my keys down on the counter, she immediately hushed her voice. "I have to go," she muttered. She turned to me with a practiced smile. "That was quick." "Flat tire," I said, my tone as flat as the rubber on my wheel. "Oh no. Want some help?" she asked lightly. "I'll manage," I replied, though my mind was now elsewhere. That call didn't sit right with me. As I changed the tire, I replayed Eleanor's recent behavior, searching for anything that felt out of place. One thing in particular stood out, something from the night before. When I'd come home, Eleanor had mentioned the bathtub draining slowly again. It was a recurring problem, nothing new. But why bring it up at exactly 6 in the evening? Our house is old, and the tub doubles as our shower. If she had noticed the slow drainage at that hour, it meant she had showered before I even got home. That wasn't incriminating on its own, but coupled with her demeanor, it raised a flag. After finishing the tire change, I went inside to wash up. On instinct, I checked the laundry basket. There it was, a damp towel from the previous night and a pair of panties, freshly hand-washed and still slightly wet. My name is Elijah, and I've been married to Eleanor for 4 years. We'd known each other in high school but never dated until reconnecting years later, post-college. Our marriage had always felt solid, emotionally and physically. But if I was being honest, the first sign of trouble had surfaced when our friends, Rick and Diane, went through a messy divorce. Rick had been devastated by Diane's infidelity, and I stood by him without hesitation. Eleanor, however, didn't share my outrage. She questioned whether betrayal really warranted such harsh consequences. "Think of it this way," I had told her. "Fidelity isn't a gray area. You either are or you aren't. It's absolute, 100% or nothing." Her reaction at the time, in hindsight, spoke volumes. We had recently bought an old fixer-upper that would only appeal to someone willing to put in the work. I had the skills but not always the time, and that morning, my heart wasn't in the repairs. Instead, I went outside to work in the yard, hoping some fresh air would help clear my head. Eleanor was tending to her roses nearby. As I focused on trimming the trees, a sharp scream shattered my thoughts. She stumbled backward, her face pale. "Snake!" she shrieked. I smirked. Eleanor was petrified of snakes. I, on the other hand, found them fascinating, little wriggling ropes with flickering tongues. Strolling over, I quickly spotted the culprit. A harmless garter snake, no bigger than a pencil. "Kill it!" she demanded, her voice shaking. "Kill it now!" Feigning concern, I scanned the ground and said, "I don't see anything. Are you sure?" "Yes, it was huge. Keep looking." She was already halfway to the door, unwilling to step back outside. I picked up a tiny twig and flicked it toward her. "Is this it?" The door slammed shut. She locked me out and refused to let me in until I repeatedly apologized for throwing the snake at her. "I need to lie down," she grumbled. "I hate snakes. Not funny." Once she was upstairs, I seized the moment to check her phone. Jotting down the numbers she'd been frequently calling, I then pulled up her Google Maps history. An address stood out, the Parakeet Lounge, marked from the previous afternoon. The pieces were falling into place. She had been making too many calls to Max Wright, her coworker, for it to be a coincidence. A quick search confirmed his home was just 4 miles away. It was time for a drive. The Parakeet Lounge was attached to the America Sleeps Motel. That answered one question. Next, I parked near Max's house and watched. Two kids played in the yard while a woman occasionally peeked outside to check on them. Eventually, a man, presumably Max, stepped out, got into his car, and drove away. I approached the house and knocked. A woman answered. "Can I help you?" she asked. I nodded. "I'm verifying census records. Are you Mrs. Wright?" "Yes," she said, eyeing me curiously. I scribbled on my notepad. "I don't have your first name. You have two children, correct? What are their ages?" "Julie," she said. "They're 5 and 7. And you're still married to Max?" She nodded. "Yes, that was all I needed. Thanks, Julie. Have a great day." Like me, she was probably clueless about what our spouses were up to. But by the end of the week, neither of our lives would be the same. For the next few days, I played my part. I kept up my routine, responded to Eleanor as usual, and dodged her advances without raising suspicion. Meanwhile, I used a burner phone to finalize my plan. If I was wrong, I needed to be absolutely sure before making my move. On Friday, I took the day off and shadowed Eleanor's every step. She left work at 2:30 p.m. I followed at a distance as she drove straight to the Parakeet Lounge. Parking at a safe distance, I watched as Max met her at the stairwell. They disappeared inside. Moments later, the motel room door shut behind them. I had my answer. That evening, Eleanor looked surprised to find me already home. "Elijah, you're back early." I shrugged. "Had some errands." "You?" A brief pause. I spilled a drink on myself, so I came home to shower. Then, almost too casually, she added, "Let's go out for steak tonight." Clever improvisation. But I was already 10 steps ahead. Earlier, I had swapped the bathroom doorknob for one that locked from the outside. Since the door always shut inward, she wouldn't notice until she was trapped inside. I listened from the hallway. The door clicked shut. I tugged the knob to make sure it held. Seconds later, the screaming began. The pounding on the door was relentless, but the terrified screams cut through even more sharply. I reached over to the nightstand, switched on the radio, and twisted the dial until the static-laced music surged to full volume, drowning out the desperate cries. You see, I had temporarily come into possession of two enormous yellow anacondas, courtesy of my friend Flynn, a herpetologist. Each serpent measured close to 8 feet long, their thick, muscular bodies nearly matching the size of my forearm. Fortunately, they were far too bulky to slip beneath the door. I had placed them inside the bathtub, ensuring they remained concealed behind the shower curtain. Though not venomous, their instincts could turn them aggressive, particularly when hungry. Thankfully, Flynn kept them well fed, so they had at least another 2 weeks before their appetites turned predatory. Eleanor's voice cut through the chaos, shrill with terror. "Elijah, please let me out. I'm begging you." Remaining perfectly composed, I responded with a mocking lilt. "Maybe Max can help. What's his number?" Her breath caught in a panicked sob. "Oh God, Elijah, I'm sorry. It didn't mean anything. It was just physical. I love you. Please open the door." Her pleas crumbled into raw, frantic shrieks. A crash followed, likely something knocked over in her blind terror. A few seconds later, her voice erupted again, even more desperate. "Elijah, for the love of God, open the door." Feigning concern, I called out smoothly, "Relax, sweetheart. They're just snakes." A deliberate pause, then I added, "But be careful. They're drawn to human fluids." Another beat before I twisted the knife. You know, sweat, urine, and a few other things in particular. A string of curses erupted from behind the door. "No, no, no! Keep them away from me!" More crashing sounds followed. She must have been flinging whatever she could grab at the slithering intruders. I added another layer of psychological torment. "Honey, try not to doze off. That's when they become the most active. They eat and breed." Her sobs thickened, choked with dread. "Elijah, please, please let me out. I can't take this." Keeping my tone deliberately calm, I delivered the final touch. "Stay still, love. You might want to turn off the lights." A well-timed lie followed. "Bright spaces agitate them. I'll check in later." For hours, her hysteria played like a twisted symphony, whimpers, shrieks, and the occasional crash of objects being hurled. At one point, a heavy thud sounded. Perhaps she had stumbled in her panic. Then came the blood-curdling screams, her voice shattering into pure, primal fear. "Elijah, help me! Get them off me, please! Smirking, I added one last, chilling remark. Try not to startle them, Eleanor. They like dark, warm spaces. The noise made sleeping in the bedroom impossible, so I stretched out on the couch and slept soundly. Morning arrived. Coffee in hand, I made my way upstairs and rapped lightly on the door. How's my darling doing? Only faint, ragged breaths answered. Exhaustion had set in. I'll check back later. The morning passed leisurely. I caught up on emails, browsed new car listings, and indulged in some entertainment. Midway through, one of Eleanor's friends came by, looking for her. I offered a sympathetic smile. Oh, she didn't call you. Rough night. Barely slept, and now she's not feeling well, acting a little off. I'll let her know you came by. A scream rattled from the bathroom, followed by another sharp crash. Hunger must have been setting in. Casually, I called out, Done with your shower yet? I'm heading out for a steak. Want me to grab you something? Her voice was barely more than a whisper, trembling. Please, please open the door. I can't take this anymore. I'm sorry. I swear I'm sorry. What do you want? Just let me out. I grinned, twisting the knife. Keep an eye on them. If they start intertwining, that means they're getting excited. You really don't want to be there when that happens. Her fragile composure shattered into unhinged screams. Open the damn door! Another fit of sobs followed, punctuated by more crashing. Feeling light on my feet, I headed outside and mowed the lawn, enjoying the crisp air. The afternoon drifted by with some TV, golf coverage, nothing too demanding. As evening fell, I decided it was time for another check-in. Knocking on the door, I called out mockingly, How's my lovely wife enjoying her new company? Her response was immediate, wild, frenzied. They're on me. Get them off. Oh God, get them off. A slow smirk spread across my face as I imagined her flailing against the serpents. I'll leave you to it. Wouldn't want to interrupt your little love affair. Sweet dreams. Her voice turned venomous. Elijah, open this damn door. Now! I chuckled. She was growing demanding. I let her stew a little longer. The night passed in a symphony of intermittent shrieks and crashes, while I once again found solace on the couch. Morning arrived. Coffee in hand, I climbed the stairs. Silence greeted me. Perhaps she had finally exhausted herself. I cracked the door open slightly. Eleanor was crumpled against the wall near the toilet, drained of all strength. The bathroom was a wreck. Shattered toiletries, scratched up walls, pure chaos. Securing the snakes in the canvas bags Flynn had provided took mere minutes. Reattaching the door handle took even less. I pulled out my phone, recording the wreckage, her disheveled state, the sheer destruction. Then I made the call. My wife's had some kind of breakdown, I told them, voice laced with concern. Locked herself in the bathroom and tore it apart. Keeps raving about snakes. She's completely delusional. I think she needs medical help. When the officers arrived, Eleanor's reaction sealed her fate. The moment they tried to move her, she erupted into a frenzied fit, thrashing and screaming about snakes. It took both of them to restrain her. They informed me she'd be taken to the hospital for psychiatric evaluation. As they examined the trashed bathroom, took pictures, and tested the lock, I retrieved the snake-filled bags and loaded them into my trunk. On the way to the hospital, I stopped by Flynn's place. The snakes were unharmed, and I owed him a steak dinner. At the hospital, I played my part flawlessly, concerned husband, heartbroken and shaken. The doctors and nurses lapped it up, offering their deepest sympathies. Apparently, cases like this weren't unheard of. Through the observation window, I watched as Eleanor lay restrained in a straitjacket, sedated into submission. The doctors assured me she would be held for at least a week. Her record was now stained, her reputation left in tatters. The final report? Not good for Eleanor. Not at all. Any sudden movement, whether from a person or an inanimate object, would send her into a wild, shrieking panic. She thrashed, raving that I had trapped her in the bathroom with snakes as some kind of twisted punishment for her betrayal. I stepped back, eyes widening in feigned shock. Betrayal? She had been unfaithful? Drawing on every ounce of my acting ability, I let the weight of the revelation settle in, molding my expression into that of a heartbroken husband. The doctor met my gaze, his face unreadable but tinged with quiet sympathy. Eleanor had been involved with a coworker, A man named Max. A sharp exhale left my lips as I sank into the nearest chair, my stomach twisting. For a moment, I simply sat there, absorbing the news, before finally speaking. "Do you think the guilt triggered this breakdown?" The doctor sighed, flipping through his notes. "The mind is a complex thing. It's difficult to say exactly what caused it." A nurse appeared beside me, pressing a cup of water into my hand. I took a slow sip, grounding myself before looking up. "So, there were no snakes," I murmured. "What happens next?" The doctor glanced down at the folder in his hands. "We've filed the necessary paperwork to extend her psychiatric hold for another 2 weeks." That was all the confirmation I needed. Without hesitation, I contacted my lawyer to initiate the divorce proceedings. He also reached out to Eleanor and Max's employer to negotiate the inevitable fallout. Since Max held a managerial role and Eleanor did not, their company's strict policy against inter-office relationships between different ranks meant her position was in jeopardy. With her confined to a psychiatric facility, she couldn't legally be served just yet. That didn't concern me. The documents would be waiting for her the moment she walked out those hospital doors. She'd also have to start job hunting soon. Meanwhile, Julie had already set her sights on the vacancy Max left behind. As for Max, he had ended up in the same hospital, but under drastically different circumstances. A venomous snake had struck him after he found it coiled inside his car. The bite had cost him several fingers. In my office, I hung a new poster on the wall, bold letters stretched across it. "A snake may shed its skin, but it's still a snake." A fitting reminder. Some people aren't worthy of forgiveness. I can only hope I met Eleanor's expectations, by staying out of the way. My friend, and this is the end of the story. If you liked this story, then put your royal like and subscribe to the channel. May the force be with you.